Greetings and welcome to this new video section. My GOGgame Story. What is this about? Well, GOG has made a competition on their site. More information below the video. And since I've been deciding to do something similar to what they suggested in the competition you made a video of anyway, I've decided to go ahead and do it. This will be the new Saturday content. And I'm gonna start covering mainly GOG games first and then expand later. Now, what is this about? Well, I will do a little review, retrospective, and a short look at some of the games from my childhood, and later some games I'm created, giving my opinion on them, what I think, and how I came in contact with them, if I can remember it. Now, I have chosen Heroes of Might and Magic 2 first, because it was the first game I ever acquired for my own money. Now, I bought this game in 1999. And I remember the day I bought it, my cousin was visiting, and we spent quite a lot of time playing it that first day. And as an extra little info, I first beat the campaign of this game this year, not that long ago actually. Most of my time has been spent playing this with myself when I was a kid. Let's go ahead and show it. Now, this is also where you can spend a lot of time in the game, both multiplayer and single player. They have a ton of scenarios. Now, I only have 6 player scenarios because I have chosen 6 players. And there's not that many of those. I will show the full list later. But this was how I spent most of the time playing. And I will now go through all of the castles to show my favorite one and my opinion on them. First off, I'm gonna start with the Barbarian Castle. I've never been too fond on the Barbarians, to be honest. When I was younger, I rarely played at them as them at all. I think it's a combination with the creatures they have. I've never been a big one on most of the evil creatures, and also that most of the creatures are pretty basic when it comes to the fantasy creatures of well, fantasy. They got most of the standard creatures in goblins, ogres, orcs, and trolls. And it's also a might castle, would mean they have little access to magic from the start. I didn't spend much time playing these guys, to be very honest. Now, the Sorcerer's Castle. Well, once again, I didn't spend super much time playing them, but they do have some nice things, including the ranged creatures, which are pretty powerful. And they also have access to magic. They are one of the magic classes of the game. Here we have their creatures. Once again, these are some, well, pretty standard fantasy with the focus on the elves and the dwarves. Normally in fantasy these guys don't like the other, but in Heroes of Might and Magic they fight together. And a little time to listen to the music of this place. Now comes one of the new castles in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, the Wizards. I actually quite enjoy the Wizard Castle. They have some nice creatures. They have a nice mix of ranged creatures. And thanks to the library, they have the most spells of any castle. They also got the giants, but to be honest, I prefer the dragons over the titans. Dragons and Titans are the Black Dragons and Titans are the two most powerful creatures in the game. And of those two, I prefer the dragons. And speaking of dragons, we have reached the Warlock Castle. Another one I enjoy playing with. Although it's still not my favorite, it will come later. They got some nice creatures. The only ranger they have, however, is the Centaur. Nice early on, but it is still a tier 1 creatures. But they do have the dragons, which are by far my favorite creature in this game. Also, the black dragons are more or less the strongest. Now let's move on to the next castle after a little bit of music. And now we reach the second new castle. Now, what do I think about the necromancers? Well, when I think back on Heroes of Might and Magic 2, one of the things I remember most is actually the animations of the necromancers fighting unit here. So there's that. And while I'm not too keen on the undeads normally, I actually quite enjoy playing as the undead here. Of course, they have the nice necromancer skill ability, that means you will get an army of skeletons. Although they have the disadvantage of getting ranged creatures quite late, and the bone dragons are not too interesting. But with that said, we are now moving on to the final castle and my favorite. And what is my favorite castle? Well, the knights. Yes, the boring old humans. They have some advantages and some disadvantages. I will not go into these things now. After this one, I will make a little tutorial video explaining all of the different factions and my opinion on them and what is good, what is bad, and how to play the game in general. But for now, let's just have a look at these. Once again, they get ranged creatures early but not that powerful. And their units are in general not as powerful as some of the others, but they are quite cheap. They don't get access to spell that early, but once they level up, they're actually quite all around in how they receive skills, so they can actually become decent spellcasters. And that is why I enjoy the knights. Now let's show off all of the maps there is. This is only for the standard. There's also the expansion. I won't talk too much about the expansion, since the game I bought and the game I have owned for the longest time has only been the standard edition. I acquired the expansion quite late. So, but as you can see, there's quite a lot with different goals and loose conditions, as you can see. And you can spend a lot of time here. And this is also mainly one of the reasons why I haven't beaten the main campaign of the game. Spent a lot of time here, and the other reasons is the sequel, which I will talk about in a later video. Now let's have a look at battle. And the reason why I picked the undead, as I told you earlier, I love the animation. So let's just get the enemy closer here. Have a look at them. Well, I love the animation. I remember them the most. There's a lot of melee going on here with the bare hands. And I just like how it just looked like they're just kind of poking to them. And that's apparently enough to kill them. Just kind of a light hug. Come, give the vampire a hug. And that is how combat is played in this game, although of course this was quite an easy one. Well, now let's have a look at the main campaign and what that is all about. Now, what is the main campaign about? Well, it's actually divided into 2 parts, and you can switch halfway through it to the other side. Now, the campaign is about the rivalry of 2 brothers, who are the sons of the king of Inbroth, the land fought about in the first game. Now, there's Archibald, who is not so good, and there's Roland, who's good. So basically it means this side you will fight, or at least start with, the good castles, the knights, the wizards, and the sorcerers. Over here you will have the barbarians, the warlocks, and the necromancers. And basically the campaign will have you following your lord's orders as he sends you out to fight. Let's have a look at one of these campaigns. Let's start with a good one. As you see here, you have a path to choose. It is basically a series of battles, minimum 8. You can choose this one as an optional one if you want to, which will give you quite an advantage throughout these ones, so there's actually no reason to take it, especially since it can be beaten quite fast. And there's 2 things. First of all, they spend figures into your score, so if you're one of those who wants a high score, you can try to optimize doing it as fast as possible. Secondarily, I want to explain this. This is a choice between either one or the other. You don't get to play the other one unless you load here and play the other one. Now, I will now show off how the evil campaign look, and how the choice of to defect to the other side looks. Here it is, and I remember this once I read this point for the first time, because that was actually quite interesting. I have never seen it done before, and actually not that much since, if at all. The fact that you can suddenly decide to switch side and fight as the other side, that's actually quite interesting, I think. Once again, you can see you have to play a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 9. And here you can also see how I have played it. Now, that is quite an interesting thing, I still find, that you get to switch here. Of course, you can see the switch will actually make it easier for you to play, as you will be 3 on 1 rather than 1 on 3. Well, since the GOG game is the Gold Edition, I will quickly just show here the extra content that you get in the Gold Edition. First of all, you get 4 new campaigns, although they are not as long as the original campaign. 2 campaigns. They are, well, the Price of Loyalty is the longest. The other ones is a little bit extra scenarios together, like this. 3 missions in total, but they do still have a story arc going through them. You also get quite a new selection of maps to play through, so you can never go amiss. Plus, there's some new unmapped items, and the necromancers have gotten another building, so now they have the equal amount of buildings to all the other castles. And now I will end this little GOG game story by explaining the history of this game. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 is made by New World Computing and published by 3DO. New World Computing is mainly known for doing Heroes of Might and Magic series and the Might and Magic series. They also made the King Bounty game that the series are built on. And of course, since this is a GOG game story, the game is available at GOG.com. Together with Heroes of Might and Magic 1 through 5 and Might and Magic 1 through 9. And this is all of the GOG game story. Next up there will be I will also make a video giving you a tutorial of how to play this game. And next week we will have a look at, well, you will have to wait and see to then.